Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else that I need to try and get this whole mental health thing back under control. And this week, let's talk about colors in Magic the Gathering. So, there is colorless, which is back when it first came out, people thought it was going to be a sixth color, but it, ended up being a non-color. So it still gets brought up in the color talk. But then, you have your Wooburg, which is white, blue, black, red, green. And then from there, you have your, guilds, which are the two color combinations, and then your shards and wedges, which are your three color combinations. Then there's the four color combinations, and then there's five color. And typically, whenever I'm looking at building a commander, I'll kind of look at my other decks and I'll go, well, do I already have something built that kind of resembles what I'm trying to do here? Like with the new Mardu Precon from Dragonstorm, I already had Caesar Legion's Emperor built, and that kind of wanted to do the same thing, so I took the two and I kind of smashed them together into one deck. But when I sit down and look at the decks I have built and how I rotate them through to, my quivers for what I'm going to be playing for, X amount of time, I try not to top load too many of the same style of decks. So, I might have my black-green Planeswalker deck, so I'm not going to put another Planeswalker deck in there, but I might do like a black-green aggro deck, you know what I mean? So for the most part, in my normal rotation, I keep at least one of my mono white decks. It's typically either going to be, Linden, which is kind of like my first foray into like building a mono white deck that I really loved. Or Nadar with his dungeon shenanigans is actually a lot of fun. And sometimes you just want to turn creatures sideways with Myril. So, things like that. But then I do try to have things that can win in different ways in that as well. So if I have something that's winning primarily with combat, I'm not necessarily going to put two more decks that primarily win with combat. They might have combat as a secondary win condition, or maybe one is go wide and one is more Voltron. So, like, in the case of, if I wanted to put Linden in the deck, the quiver, I might do Adelise because, well, she can go wide with some tokens. The main goal there is to one-shot people with Adelise. So all this is to say, I have my favorite colors, and I kind of want to go over that today. So I'm going to start at the single colors and work my way up. So for single colors, for my playstyle, I prefer, mono white and mono black. They both kind of fall in my wheelhouse, and those are my two favorite monocolors to play. Yes, the mono white might have been out of spite from several years ago, but I did kind of fall in love with finding ways to play mono white in Commander. Now, when we get to the two color combinations, you might automatically assume I'm in like Orzhov with the white black, but I'm actually more in the Boros and the Gruul, which is more of the attacky colors. I do tend to, not be the biggest fan of blue. I have played blue to show that I can do it, and I have done it in ways that are not, counter everything and bounce everything, but like I know how to play blue decks. When we move into the 3-color, you kind of have to break it down into shards and wedges. So shards from Shards of Alara, I'm typically in the Jund camp, which is, again, the attacky colors. Then there's in the in the wedges, I actually have two that are kind of tied for the top, and that is Abzan and Mardu. But I think Mardu might take the top there. It's one of my favorite color combinations since Cons of Tarkir, basically. Now, when we get into the 4-color stuff, I don't have any of the original face 4-color commanders built, but I have done stuff with the partners, and the one that I always kind of go back to whenever I want to build a 4-color deck is 4-color artifacts, and they're in some combination of everything but green or everything but red. So, yeah. I've done a lot of work with that. And then when we look at 5-color, it's always got a theme to it whenever I build it. So I have my 5-color Slivers deck, which comes out rarely because it is powerful, so I bring that out when I'm playing against other strong decks. I've got my 5-color Allies, which is kind of stagnant after several years because we have not gotten any new allies. I'm looking at you, Watsy. Let's see what else. Oh, I have the 5-color Assassins built. That's on version 1 of the deck. I haven't sat down and tweaked it to where I want it yet. So it just kind of depends on what I wanted to do with the colors, you know? So, yeah, that's kind of it. I just wanted to do a quick overview of some colors and where exactly I stand on the color buy. That said, I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about a deck that I've been working on putting together for a couple of weeks. I'll be right back. And we're back. Now, I am going to be talking about a deck that I'm building that does contain blue. That's just how this shakes out. So, the deck that I've been working on building is Sabsunin Luxa Embodied, which is 3, a green and a blue for a 6/6 god. It has reach, trample, and indestructible. Can't attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. 0 is even. And at the beginning of your first main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on Sabsunin. Then, if it has an odd number of counters on it, draw 2 cards. So, when I first saw this, I was like, huh, that's neat. How can I exploit that to be able to draw cards and attack basically every turn? And so I started pulling things that, could put a counter on her, or could put 2 counters on her, or, just to manipulate the counters that are on her. And this is kind of a snapshot of what I've gotten put together so far. So I did want to have, some creatures in here, and I found a good way to get the creatures in here, but also hit that side goal of putting counters on things, was adventures. So Emerald Dragon is 4 green for a 4/4 dragon with flying and trample. So, it's a decent body for turns when Sabsunin can't attack. But it has Dissonant Wave as an adventure, which is 2 and a green for an instant, counter target activated or triggered ability from a non-creature source. So it's just getting me that extra thing that I can do. Same with Sapphire Dragon, 5 blue for a 5/6 dragon with flying whenever it attacks or blocks Scry 2. And it has Psionic Pulse, 2 and a blue, instant counter target non-creature spell. But the one that makes the most sense in here is actually Dread Lenorm, which is 6 and a green for a 7/6 snake dragon, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or less, but it has Scale Deflection, which is 3 and a green for an instant. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature and untap it. It gains hexproof until end of turn. So it kind of pulls double duty. So again, it's a 7/6 body, but then it can put 2 counters on Sabsunin, which, if she already has the even number of counters on her, she's just a bigger attacker, but also the hexproof. So there's just, things that I can do to get in for more damage. I also threw a Sword Coast Sailor in here, which is 1 and a blue for a background enchantment. And it says, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, this creature can't be blocked this turn. So yes, she has trample, but this is an even better form of evasion you can give her. And it just kind of makes a ton of sense. Now, other things we wanted to do in this deck is, some sorcery speed stuff. So like Ent's Fury is 1 and a green for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, if its power is 4 or greater. Then that creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn and fights target creature you don't control. So, again, she's already a 6/6, so she gets the counter. So if she had an odd number of counters on her, you get to put a counter on her, make her like an 8/8 or a 10/10. Then she gets an additional +1/+1, making her like an 11/11. Then she fights a thing, which, again, she has indestructible, so we don't care about. And then you still get to attack. Alright, now I want to talk about some repeatable effects. And I want to start with one that's only in here because of what it is. And that's Bounty of the Luxa. It's 2, a green and a blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all flood counters from Bounty of the Luxa. If no counters were removed this way, put a flood counter on Bounty of the Luxa and draw a card. Otherwise, you add a colorless, a green, and a blue mana to your mana pool. It's just stupid. But, Sabsunin is the Luxa embodied, so it just made sense for me to sneak it in there as a little bit of a flavor card. But we wanted to have things we could do every turn, so things like Hadana's Climb, which is 1, a green and a blue for a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if that creature has more than 3 +1/+1 counters on it, you transform Hadana's Climb, and it becomes the Winged Temple of Oraska. It can tap for any color, or you can pay 1, a green, and a blue, and tap it to have target creature you control gain flying and get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is its power. So, we can kind of speedrun getting to the 3 counters. It's the backside here that we're actually more interested in, and then turning Sabsunin into just a lethal flying attacker. Another one that's going to let us do things every turn is Retreat to Kazandu, which is 2 and a green for an enchantment. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can either choose to put a counter on a creature or gain 2 life. So it's, every turn that she goes to an odd number, we get to draw on additional cards. Hopefully, we're going to be hitting our lands that way. You play a land, you put a counter on her, she can attack again. So it's just things like that. Now, Glowcap Lantern is a single green for an equipment. Equips for 2, and the equipped creature has, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and whenever this creature attacks, it explores. So, this is a good way to hit land drops for our second main phase, or put counters on our commander mid-combat. Then there is a sub-theme here of proliferation. One of the first cards that actually made its way into the deck when I started building it was Thirsting Roots. It's a single green for a sorcery. You can either search your library for a basic land card, reveal, put it in your hand, then shuffle, or you can proliferate. And in that same vein, we have Tizrit's Gambit, which is 3 and a Phyrexian blue for a sorcery. Draw 2 cards, and then proliferate. So it's just, doing that. But speaking of proliferation, we've got Izuri, Stalker of Spheres, in here. He's 2 and a green and a blue for a 3/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior. When he enters the battlefield, you can pay 3 if you do proliferate twice, and then whenever you proliferate, draw a card. Then we have Tekethal, Inquiry Dominus, 2 blue for a 3/5 Phyrexian Horror with flying, and he doesn't actually proliferate, but if you would proliferate, you proliferate twice instead. And then you can pay 1 and 2 2 Phyrexian blue manas, remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control to put an indestructible counter on Tekethal, Inquiry Dominus. Things like Venomous Brutalizer, 2 green for a 4/4 Phyrexian Knight, has Toxic 3. Not necessarily what we're trying to do here, but when it enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and a green if you do proliferate. Again, not caring about the toxic, we have Containment Grafter, which is 4 and a green for a 5/5 Phyrexian Druid. It has Trample and Toxic 1. And whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to 1 or more players, proliferate. That's the real reason it's in here. It does have Corrupted at the beginning of your end step. If an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, draw a card. Then you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. We have things like Rishkar Pima Renegade, 2 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Druid. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add green to your mana pool. So he kind of pulls double duty. He can put the additional counter on Sabsunin, or he can make 2 other things into mana dorks. And then we get into the things we can do every turn with these last couple things I want to talk about. The first one, Sentinel of the Nameless City, 2 and a green for a 3/4 Merfolk Warrior Scout with Vigilance. Whenever Sentinel of the Nameless City enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a map token. So again, it's a way to get some additional counters on a creature, because map tokens, you can pay 1, tap, sacrifice the artifact to have a creature explore. Can only be activated at sorcery speed, but you get your triggers from Sabsunin at the beginning of your main phase. So just, I don't know, seems like a decent thing. After that, we have Evolution Sage, which does bring in more proliferation. 2 and a green for a 3/2 Elf Druid. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. And then there's the final 2 I want to talk about that can put counters out every turn. So, Treetop Snare Spinner, there we go, is 3 and a green for a 1/4 Spider with Reach, Death Touch, and for 2 and a green, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. And finally, we have the Ornery Tumblewag, 2 and a green for a 2/2 Brushwag mount. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And whenever the Ornery Tumblewag attacks, while saddled, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. So, yeah, that's just... We're just going to throw counters out and manipulate them a lot. And, yeah. That's kind of it. The deck isn't done yet. There's still a couple of things I want to get my hands on. I need the... can't think of the name of it right now, but the thing that has Hideaway, that lets you put a counter on a thing every turn. Need to find one of those. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week. I'm going to head out, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulvey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.